Hello and welcome to this week's edition of France in Focus here on France 24. This week we'll be delving into the reconstruction effort at Paris's Notre-Dame Cathedral. Who can forget the moment the spire collapsed in April 2019? Now it will be rebuilt in an identical fashion. When the fire broke out in April 2019, there was construction taking place in the roof. Scaffolding was placed around the spire. The fire caused the scaffolding to melt and it encrusted on the building. Now, construction crews are working around the clock to remove the metal bit by bit. Take a look.
Piece after piece, the mechano maze of metal weighing down on Notre Dame for over a year is lifted by a team suspended in the skyline. A task made all the more difficult as the scaffolding pipes have become partly welded together by the fire. Maximum concentration is required for this delicate operation, which has been meticulously prepared over the past few months.
We can't just bring in a helicopter and lift it off because there's the cathedral underneath. We don't want to cause any extra damage.
Didier Cuizet, the head of the operation, has planned the dismantling down to the smallest details.
Once we get to there, we'll come back here again, before doing a little bit at the opposite side, because we're balancing out the weight. We've calculated it with the plans that we made in advance. We can't just take off 5 meters on this side and leave 10 on the other. That would unbalance the structure.
Before cutting them out, the workers must secure each and every metal tube by tying it up. This unprecedented operation calls for specialized equipment.
We've installed a system which was specially designed for the operation. So there are 2 big pillars which sit above the scaffolding, and on this there are automized systems.
Due to weather conditions and the COVID crisis, the operation is behind schedule. To catch up, the work is continuing around the clock. They're working above Notre-Dame's vaults, where before the fire there was a roof. Every last fragment of timber, lead and stone must be removed. It's another top priority on site.
Architects need the surface to be as clean as possible so they can assess the state of the vaults and decide whether workers can be safely authorized to go under the vaults. So our goal is really to clean up as best as possible.
Every night, 4 tons of rubble are brought out. In Notre Dame's bell towers, another unprecedented operation is underway. Hovering mid-air like astronauts, these repair technicians are cleaning, wearing ventilator masks, on the hunt for lead dust.
The dust has really been absorbed into the wood and the stone. So to get to it, first you need to use the brush and then the hoover. We really have to look for it centimeter by centimeter.
A layer of lead dust also covers the organ. Scaffolding was assembled in order to dismantle the 8,000 pipes, a priority for those supervising the site.
This organ is the power that makes Notre-Dame stones vibrate and sing. Everything is calculated towards us hearing the organ once again in April 2024.
Long months lie ahead in bringing Notre-Dame back to life.
To find out more about the restoration effort taking place to bring Notre-Dame back to its former glory, let's head to a laboratory in the Parisian suburbs to meet some of the scientists working behind the scenes. Can you tell us what you're doing in this laboratory?
In this laboratory, we're studying the materials that make up the building. For Notre-Dame, the most important aspect is the stone. We need to analyze it to help architects who specialize in historic buildings to understand in what state the cathedral currently is, to know what will need to be changed, and whether it will be possible to leave the stones that are still in place as they are. Our role is to shed light on the condition of the materials that make up the cathedral so that architects can then do their work.
And what have you learned about Notre-Dame? Anything in particular that you've learned through your work here?
Pour l'instant, nous apprenons surtout à comprendre les mécanismes qui ont découlé de l'incendie.
So far, we've gained an understanding of the mechanisms that came into play during the incident,
C'est un des problèmes extrêmement
how the fire has affected the stones,
s'est vaporisé dans l'air,
how the lead spread into the air and covered some of the walls. That's one of the most important issues. Here in the laboratory, a lot of our work has to do with removing lead, so that it's safe for those who are carrying out the job on the site. So, in all, we've learnt that the fire that happened at Notre-Dame wasn't very different to a fire at any other building. What is different is the emotion that comes with it. And in archaeological terms, there'll be a lot to learn about Notre-Dame as colleagues working in social and hard sciences carry out further research over the next 40 to 50 years.
So we know how things survived the fire. Do we know what caused the fire?
No, not at all, because the investigation is still ongoing. And the police haven't finished their investigation because some parts at the top of the building can't be reached. All they've been able to work with for now is what fell into the cathedral.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So can you tell us what exactly these stones are?
So those stones are coming from Notre-Dame, and they are coming from the collapsed walls which were on the ground. They have been sorted, and they have been also selected to come here because they have to be studied to help the restoration of the cathedral.
And these are stones that have all been washed and cleaned after the fire.
Yeah, they didn't have they didn't have this aspect before. They were totally embedded into crushed stone, crushed mortars, and also with some coal and mainly lead. So they have been cleaned into baths only with water and very gently, because some of them do present some traces of polychromy. I can show you some remains of polychromy on this one. Yeah. Yes, this is the inner part of the vault.
But can these be reused in the reconstruction effort?
Those ones which are here will not be reused because they will be studied. So you can see that some of the samples we have collected with color, and we are going to study the color, the nature of the pigments, the nature of the binders of the paint. And this will be a very hard but very useful work we're going to do here on those stones.
Thank you. Can you tell us what exactly you're doing here?
Here we carry out the diagnosis on the stained glass windows of Notre-Dame. The aim is to check the state of the cames, the paintings, the glass, and to analyze the deposit of black dust that you can see here.
Et d'étudier en fait ce dépôt de poussière noire que vous voyez ici. On a quand même un état très très noir.
In order to clean the windows, we use a soft brush that'll eliminate the residue.
Aspiration avec un pinceau doux, comme ça.
And then we'll be able to clean it up using a compress.
Et ensuite, on pourra procéder au nettoyage avec des compresses.
We'll check whether any of the paint peels off and if it needs some work. And we'll strengthen the cames.
Et on renforcera les plombs.
All this part will be carried out by the restorer.
Par le restaurateur qui aura en charge la restauration.
This looks pretty good to me. Do you see like instances where it's beyond repair, you cannot restore it, from what you've seen?
Là, en fait, ce qu'on va faire,
it does need to be restored, but the window is indeed in good shape.
Tout va bien.
As you can see, some parts have broken due to the thermal shock.
Qui sont liés au choc thermique.
So they will need to use some special glue to hold it together. But on the whole, you're quite right, the window is in a relatively good shape. It isn't shattered like we could have expected it to be when we saw the fire break out that evening. I was surprised by this too.
Now, one of the oldest structures of Notre-Dame was the wooden frame located in the roof. The fire in April 2019 turned it to dust. Since then, a debate has raged in the country over whether the new frame should be made of wood or a different material. Now, some of the finest carpenters in the country have teamed up to demonstrate how the new frame can be made of wood in a timely manner.
The sound of axes echoes across the woods of Hermenonville Castle. The scene may have a medieval feel, but it's actually the modern-day project of a group of volunteer carpenters. They're busy reproducing part of the framework of the nave of Paris's Notre-Dame Cathedral.
In less than a week, with 25 professional carpenters, we've entirely built one of the roof trusses of the nave of Notre-Dame as it was before the fire. One truss in 1 week. We know that there are 25 trusses. A quick calculation shows that these are all extremely doable and reasonable deadlines.
The French National Heritage Commission has advised restoring Notre-Dame to as it was before the fire. These carpenters have paved the way, showing that it's possible to rebuild the cathedral's wooden roof structure in a timely manner, just like it was done in the Middle Ages.
Medieval frameworks were made exactly with these techniques. Notre-Dame's ones lasted 8 centuries, and there are frameworks made with these techniques which lasted 1,000 years. So the longevity and effectiveness of this technique is already proven. When a work that has been destroyed is so well documented, it is our duty to rebuild it faithfully.
The carpenters used 8 trees to build this 3-ton truss. The organisation says it would take 1,000 oak trees to build the entire structure, a quantity it considers reasonable, as France has more than 1 million on its land.
That's it for this edition of France in Focus. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.